Hello, everyone. Welcome to LexTalk World Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today, we have Mr. Pedro Oller. He is the founding partner and principal director of Oller Abogados, a law firm located in Costa Rica. He is the co author of International Commercial Arbitration and Comparative Survey. He has been selected as one of the best 40 under 40 lawyers by Latin Lawyer for Central America and the Caribbean. For over 15 years, recognized by Chamber and Partners and Legal 500 as a recommended lawyer for Costa Rica in corporate and dispute resolution matters. Pedro also served as regional counsel for GBM and IBM's Alliance Company from 1997 to 2006, overseeing the operations in all Central America, Panama, and the Miami, Florida. During this time, he also started a law firm from a client's point of view, as branded by his father and partner, Enrique Oller. Hello, Mr. Pedro. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and
Welcome
I
on
look
board.
forward. Thank you.
Glad
I
to
look,
have you on this discussion, and we would like to know more about your personal and professional journey.
shoot away.
So, please brief us about your journey as a legal profession so far.
Thank you. Um, I would say that it has been an enjoyable and memorable trip. Um, upon graduating from my master's degree in the U.S., I returned to Costa Rica, and I first tried the traditional route with a well-established local firm. I was with them for 3 years as a partner. Um, I sensed a lot of areas that could be improved, and ultimately made the decision to leave that law firm. At that time, my father, who was a lawyer by academic formation, but who had been in business for well over 30 years, was transitioning, not yet ready to retire. And so we started talking, and that's how Oller Abogados was created. He set out a number of core values that we attempt to hold true. Um, as you mentioned, the primary one is a law firm from a client's point of view. So we always try to abide by the client's needs, their requirements, and also their objectives. And we try to aid them in achieving those objectives, and not stand in their way, or become an additional problem for clients, which was something that I perceived uh, once I left my old firm, was something that was occurring in the Costa Rican legal market at the time. Uh, and as you mentioned, uh, along the route, I was regional counsel for the IBM subsidiary for the whole of Central America and the Dominican Republic, with uh, offices also in Miami. And that allowed me to uh, reinforce being empathic to the needs and desires, as I was saying, of multinational corporate clients, and to be very considerate, especially in these times, with the difficult tasks that they are faced with, given the limited resources that they have.
Wonderful. What a great start you had in the legal business, like working with the in-house side as well as starting your own law firm with your father. I think that's your biggest strength.
It is.
Yes. So tell us about your most memorable case, and what are your key takeaways from there?
Sure. I would say that we've had a couple of very interesting cases, or very interesting circumstances. Uh, from an M&A point of view, I would mention two instances. One was when we acted on behalf of seller in the M&A of the largest internet network infrastructure for Central America and the Caribbean. That was sold to a U.S. conglomerate. And the main takeaway I had from that transaction was that then I leveraged most of the work done on behalf of the client, who was the IBM subsidiary. Most of the work was leveraged through local law firms and lawyers, and a good chunk of those are the best friends that still remain for Oller Abogados, and who we refer and receive referrals for work in the region. So that was a very, very good takeaway. The other on the M&A side would be we acted on behalf of the buyer in a transaction that took us to Ecuador and Bolivia, because the entity that was targeted had a presence in both countries. That one we undertook with only 3 lawyers acting on behalf of the acquirer, of the purchaser, myself and 2 law firm associates. And the takeaway I recognize from that experience is that even when we have limited resources, this law firm has the muscle to pull ahead and to achieve the objectives of the client. So much so that, based on some of the concerns we had, the client ultimately made the decision not to move ahead with the transaction and the acquisition, because the concerns we identified were not possible to remediate in the short term. And then on a more recent case, and that is an arbitration case we undertook on behalf of a Spanish client against the government of Costa Rica. First international arbitration case in Costa Rica last year, which was decided favorably for client. And again, it involved a number of the lawyers in this firm, and I hope I get a chance to explain why moving forward with this interview. But the takeaway is how we can cross work between areas in this law firm, even though, or because of its size. It could be argued both ways, and achieve the objectives or the goals that the client has. So those are two I would refer to, 2 or 3.
Wonderful. So you had a very proudest moments in your career so far. That's wonderful. So my next question would be, how do you look at corporate governance in 2020, and how it's going to change 5 years down the line?
That's a very difficult question. It's very opportune or timely, as corporate governance will most likely change and evolve as a result of COVID. But as we have learned, also because of COVID, life includes chaos as part of our paradigm, and we need to shift accordingly. And that it is very hard to anticipate the future. So looking 5 years down the line, even though it's a very short term with regards to the law, I would argue that it is very difficult to anticipate what changes would come. I would argue that corporate governance is an area that changes very slowly, especially legislation-wise. It is far easier for companies to undertake internally the changes that need to respond to the circumstances, anticipating what the government will be doing next. So precisely one of the things that counsel needs to be doing is to anticipate those evolving circumstances, as I mentioned, what the client's requirements are going to be and how best to respond to them and to adapt, especially in light of newly enacted laws that respond to those changing circumstances.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on this. So, my next question would be, Pedro, in your opinion, why do clients share such a long-standing relationship with your brand, with Oller Abogados? Can you please enlighten on this?
I'll try because I'm not sure, but here are some thoughts. We do not drive our commitment based on revenues, but rather commit to the client to drive those revenues. That is a lesson I learned from my father and one of the core values that we have. So even when the discussion seems to be about ALSPs or alternative legal service providers and their impact to the legal profession, we still hold true to our value-based model that is driven by the client, and we are not in a state of panic with regards to these new forms of competition that we are seeing surface. Um, we understand that we are a well-versed niche firm in two very distinct legal ecosystems. Corporate on one hand, where we have fierce competition coming from all sides, and public law on the other, where we focus primarily on government procurement and constitutional law. And if given the opportunity to cross-reference both areas, which is something that, thank you for the question, that allows me to expand on the recent experience in the arbitration I referenced before. If we are given the opportunity to cross-reference work between those areas, Oller Abogados holds a differentiated advantage that is very much appreciated by our clients and that allows them to achieve their goals uh, more efficiently. They don't need to shop around uh, uh, for for different needs, but rather we have those resources in house. And I would also say that our long-term relationships are the result of our commitment to the needs of clients. You will hear me say that over and over again, not only as part of this interview, uh, but also internally and to the clients themselves. Um, we're truly and fully committed to their needs, and this commitment is not a weather vane of of where the industry is heading, or what areas are more interesting, or what revenues are driving work the most, but rather what our client needs are, and how we can best help them achieve them.
Wow, that's such a great strength of yours.
Thank you.
So, Pedro, I would also like to know about your prerequisites, especially for your law firm perspective and the legal industry to evolve post COVID.
Yeah, I this is something that I think that we need to think about how best to adapt. Um, and I think that at this time, uh, even though the law and lawyers alike have proven to be very slow to react and very slow to change and to implement technology. I think that technology, first and foremost, is the requirement moving forward. Uh, we need to understand as lawyers that our technological provisions need to be up to par with the technological requirements of our clients. There cannot be any gaps. Uh, for for our law firm, which in our case, also I do understand that size matters and helps, but we adapted very swiftly to the changing circumstances that uh, COVID created last year, and we at Oller Abogados are very eager to evolve. Uh, as I mentioned, COVID did not catch us off guard technologically. Our work did not suffer for clients externally once we shifted to remote scenarios internally. That is, re- removing the entire workforce from our offices and having them work remotely from home.
Right.
We've also started considering different AI models to best take care of the day-to-day requirements of our clientele, including uh, questions and concerns that can be easily responded to or addressed and that do not need follow-up, and to anticipate the needs of potential clients. We are looking into that as I speak. Um while we still have in-person conferences to this day, we have virtual meetings in all platforms. We've habilitated all platforms for virtual conferencing throughout the law firm. And finally, one of the major considerations we have is the law firm's outreach moving forward. Uh, um, it was the case years ago that we had opted not to pursue a regional strategy and remain true to our best friend approach, while most of our competitors have moved into a regional platform, be it through brand names or actual acquisition of law firms through Central America. Uh, we 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 understood that if we wanted to stay true to our values and still remain independent, unbiased, opportune, and flexible, that our best way to approach the regional work that was driven through Oller Abogados was to have a best friend infrastructure in the region, Central America and part of the Caribbean. Now, given the current scenario and the fact that it has proven that we can consider different options moving globally,
Yeah.
uh, uh, even for a law firm in tiny Costa Rica, we are now giving thought to how best to approach an opportunity, say in Croatia, while still keeping a close eye in Honduras for work that could be done from Costa Rica or in association with Costa Rica and Oller Abogados.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because we have to evolve ourselves in this pandemic, and I don't know how long this will take, but now I think it's stuck in our root, and every business has to change accordingly. So that's a
Yes,
great move taken by your organization.
thank
So,
you.
on a personal note, I would like to ask you, if not a lawyer, what would you say your life path would be?
Wow, great question. I love that question.
Please go ahead.
Definitely something creative. Uh, I even though I like the formality of the law, I also like thinking outside of the box, and the law does allow me to do that most of the time. But I would have liked to do something a little more creative, probably. I keep a close eye on new marketing, which is fast moving and exciting. on how social networking is evolving, and how they have become seductively treacherous and potentially dangerous, and the different scenarios of pop-up brainstorming, uh, and I find those to be very intriguing as to how they will survive moving forward, especially given the distancing that we need to keep. But getting back to your question and to land it, uh, I would say that I would probably be doing something in architecture, hopefully an architect, but something in architecture, which is a pet peeve for me. Uh, it 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 has the charm, the old world charm, while at the same time allowing you a blank page and to do renderings of what the world will look like in say 6 months or 60 years. Um, that fact alone makes architecture the sole driver of humankind, uh, and and the epitome of the best that we can achieve. Uh, and now that I think about it, maybe lawyers need to think more like architects and envision our profession as building something moving forward and not just blowing it up and letting the remains sit there. And that's just the thought of of both professions and how each could benefit from each other.
You must have a lot of friends from that profession, I believe.
I not only friends, I'm even related to one. I have a sister-in-law who's a lawyer and who's an architect, and who is very creative. Yeah,
Yeah, that profession is very creative. So I respect your thoughts on this also. Thank you
thank you,
so much, Pedro, for sharing such great insight with us. I really appreciate your time on this. And
thank you,
we look forward to having a chat with you again in the future on some other trending topics in the international legal business.
thank you. It has been an honor to speak with you and to be considered by LexTalk as someone who can share some thoughts on these very relevant topics that you have brought up.
Thank you so much. And for
Thank
our
you.
viewers, if you like this chat with Mr. Pedro, please like and share this video and also subscribe to Clickaway Creators YouTube channel to appreciate what we do and you have more coming from the industry leaders. This is Abhishek for Lex Talk World.